Welcome to Fall, Rise, Give, a space where we invite you to dig into the real cause of your suffering, looking at opportunities for growth with a change in your beliefs, thoughts, and actions so you can be your true self and be inspired. Join us as we explore life's ups and downs and navigate the twists and turns, sharing stories of resilience, hope, and the transformative power of giving back. Whether you're looking for a change, in recovery, or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your go-to for candid conversations, raw emotions, and a whole lot of heart. Tune in and discover how to fall, rise, and give back on life's extraordinary journey. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Fall, Rise, Give, turning struggles into opportunities by being your true self and help others. I'm Bartender Bob. I'm an ally trying to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem, dealing with family and recovery and, just being, trying to be a good guy and doing the right thing. That, of course, Kumar, welcome.
It's a nice sunny day in the Midwest in Chicago area, where I'm calling from or recording from today. It's awfully cold out there. It's like 7 degrees outside.
Hey, at least you're on the positive side. It says here that I'm 6 degrees below zero. So it's it's a cold start to the day for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, this past 45 weeks or so, we've been doing this podcast called Fall, Rise, Give, and we're trying to help people turn their struggles into opportunities. But what's the focus now? I mean, are we staying with the same focus on this? Are we changing things up a little bit or what?
Yeah, I think the focus is really still to help them overcome struggles and look at opportunities. But there's kind of a little bit of a shift in mindset, if you want to call it that. The basic premise is that the way we are able to help people is what we call the attitude adjustment program, and people gone through recovery and things like that. But really, when we started talking about the chakra system and the whole approach of principles based on modern science, one of the biggest things that we started thinking about the last couple of weeks with a group of friends is, how do we help people shift their mindset? How do we really get people to start thinking about to make a positive change in their lives? So anybody in recovery or anybody outside of recovery wants to change their life. Let's say they want to change their career. And for them to be able to do that, they have to go through a set of exercises and or goal writing and or a thought process change, but it really involves their shift in the way they think about what they want to achieve, start the process of actually manifesting, if you want to call it that, the ability to be able to change their career. So this is not just about a career change. It could also be about a relationship. It could also be about a health situation. But really what we know is that our beliefs turn into our thoughts turn into our emotions, and oftentimes our emotions determine our actions. And so that process of actually making a change requires us to actually get inside our deep belief systems. But that starts with how we think about certain situations or certain things. So that's kind of the way we're thinking about it. I created a framework based on some science from a doctor out of Seattle, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's done tons of research. He's a famous New York Times bestselling author, and he talks about our brain. And so let's talk about that and how people actually can shift their mindset. So that's kind of what we're going into this path of helping people. You could look at it as a way of maybe a little bit of life coaching, mindset coaching, motivational coaching, all of those things combine into how do we help people shift their mindset in a matter of minutes to help them get what they truly want out of their situation, whatever that situation is, a career change, a healthy relationship, and or a healthy physical, mind-body connection.
You mentioned a couple of minutes. Is it possible to change a mindset in a couple of minutes? Because I know that, if I'm having issues with things and something's really bothering me, it takes me a while to get through that. Yeah. And, I think about it and then I I know you call it meditation, but a lot of times I'll think on things. And to me, that's kind of my meditation. And then I'll play it through in my head, and then I'll kind of withdraw for a few minutes. And then everything starts to loosen up and move around. And pretty soon I'm coming up with either a solution or, either a positive or a negative solution. But, that's kind of how I work through things myself. How
Yeah.
are you suggesting that we can do that in a matter of moments rather than a matter of hours or days or weeks or months?
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I want to use an example of yesterday and my experience on Friday. I was in a situation where a very conflict driven meeting that I was in on Friday afternoon, and my emotions got all riled up and the situation went a little bit out of control, got back to center, but it really started to bother me a little bit. So the first thing I did once I got out of that meeting was I breathed. I started my meditation exercises through breathing. And so these breathing exercises got me in a matter of minutes in a calm state of mind. And from there, I was able to change my brain waves from beta, which is living in a common worldly ways that our brain thinks when we're doing our daily functions of living, working, thinking, whatever. We're in the beta state of mind. So through the meditation and breathing exercises, I was able to get into the alpha waves and a little bit struggle, but I was able to get into a little bit of theta waves. And within minutes, meaning like less than 30 minutes, I was able to calm myself down, get centered. I was able to change my mindset into a solution-based mindset. And so I was able to essentially motivate myself and change my mindset around how I thought about the problem. I had a meeting an hour later from that situation, and I immediately jumped into a solutions mindset about how I'm going to solve that problem in the upcoming work week. So that really is how you do it. You start breathing, you start getting into a meditative state, and you close your eyes, you go through this set of protocol that I have, and you're able to shift your mindset in a matter of minutes. Now, is that going to be everlasting and forever? Is that just a patch for the day? It is a patch for the moment. You are able to shift it. Now, it may last a whole day. It may last a week. But you probably want to do that again and again until you develop the muscle to be able to change it in a matter of minutes at any situation.
Is that something you could have done during the meeting? You said when you got done with the meeting, the first thing you did is you took some deep cleansing breaths. Could you, instead of letting it get to that point where it really bothered you so much, could you have just stopped for a moment in the meeting and, taken that deep cleansing breath at that moment? And would that have started you in that path, or was that something you had to do?
Yeah, I started doing that towards when the conflicts started to settle down. And I wasn't charged up all the way, but there was a situation where one person had to say, "Hey, time out, everybody." And so the timeout did help create that environment. Now, when I'm on my game, I'm human, right? I'm not some guru who can be in a meditative state at all times and can be calm and centered. When I'm centered and calm, I can definitely do that and take a pause. I'm often the one suggesting that we all pause for a moment. In this situation, I wasn't the one saying, "Hey, let's pause for a moment." So I was charged up. It's totally okay. It's a very serious topic about a serious budgeting of millions of dollars worth of ask from a business standpoint. So I was a bit charged up. And for me at that moment, I couldn't or I didn't breathe at that moment and really be very thoughtful. So that's a lesson that, yeah, you can do it at that meeting. That's the muscle that we want to develop, to be able to do that in the middle of a conflict-driven situation. And I often feel, I want to say about 80% of the time I'm able to do that. So 20% of the time I'm not. Now, before I went on this journey in the last few years, I would probably say it was 40% of the time that I was able to calm down in the middle of a meeting or stay calm or not say a word or what have you. But today, with our things that we practice and the principles that I practice, from coaching of my employees to coaching of other people outside of my workplace and the programs and leadership programs that I've been in, I am able to stay centered, stay calm, and really look at the objective of what is it that we want out of that situation? What is it that we want to accomplish in that meeting? What is it that we want to accomplish in the middle of that conversation that we're having somebody else?
Kumar, what advice would you give to somebody that's struggling to find their own source of motivation then, in order, if they're going through that same thing in a meeting and they've had it up to here, what kind of suggestions can you give to them to motivate them in order to not blow their stack or to be able to get things done after having just a crap meeting?
Yeah, I think the first thing, as we just talked about, the first and the foremost thing is really to be calm and centered. And the second thing is to focus on what is it that you want? What's your desire? Long-term, short-term. Oftentimes these things are short-term. In that meeting, what is it that you want to get out of it? That's really the key. And then there are things that get in the way, like fears and anxiety or charged up emotions. And then we have to go to the next level, have the energy to be able to sustain that over a long period of time. So at that moment, the best thing we can do for ourselves is really accept the situation that we're in, stay calm and centered, and then start to focus on things that we want in that situation, for that day, for that week, for whatever that year that we want to get it. So motivation really comes from opening up to your desires. And as I talk about it as a second principle of our protocol, first one is really around grounding yourself. Second one is really focusing on your desires. You're not going to get motivated unless you have a goal. That's just a matter of fact. If you don't have a goal, if you don't think you can achieve your goal, you're not going to be motivated to make that change. So it's getting very clear after you're centered, what is it that you want out of an area of your life?
When it comes to goal setting and stuff like that, do you find it's easier when you write them down, or when you just think about them, or when you say them out loud, or what's the best way that you have found to achieve some of those goals that you've set for yourself?
Yeah. So I think research has proven, I think there was a research study done by Harvard University, I want to say back in the 70s, and they tracked people, I think it might have been the 60s, they tracked people who wrote down goals. These are Harvard graduates. And only about 10% or 15% of the population of that group in the study wrote down their goals. And what the study showed was that these people who wrote down their goals were worth more than the 90% who didn't write down their goals. So the research showed that when you do write down your goals, you are able to articulate what you want and then go after what you want. You have to have a belief system and action steps and all of those things. But writing down really is the first step. Thinking about goals, they don't become concrete until you write them down. That's why it's not really just about goals, it's your true desires. It's aligning to your purpose, aligning to the bigger, higher self of who you are, what you truly want. And we've talked about this with the second chakra, opening up your desires in the past. It's really about getting alignment with your true purpose. And oftentimes, true purpose comes from things that you don't want to do, things that you're not good at, and figuring out what you're good at and what you like to do over time. Then you start to figure out, hey, this is really what I want. I know what I don't want. And once you start figuring out what you do want, and then for the next year, for the next 6 months, for the next 3 months, writing down these desires, turning them into goals. Now, there's a methodology for what in business they call SMART goals. SMART goals, have you heard about that, Bob?
Yeah. Is it specific, measurable, attainable. What's the R?
Um, time based. There's a
Okay,
time to
but
it.
isn't that wide? It's specific, measurable, attainable. Da 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 da.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's really basing it on getting very specific at what you want, that you can attain them in the period of time. I mean, if you're going to be a average middle class person and you want to be a billionaire, that seems highly improbable that you can get there in a year. Now, you can maybe have the skills and the experience of starting a business or something like that, that over 10 years you might be able to get there. But certainly trying to become a person who makes over $100,000 could be a goal for a year or 2 years, and then you can achieve those kind of goals. So, like you said, it's specific, measurable, attainable, um,
Relevant. I
relevant to
I looked
what
it
it
up.
is, good, so relevant, and then time based, right? That's really
Right.
what it's about.
Yeah, and I remember learning those in 2017 when I got another degree. So talking about the way that tools and setting down your goals and writing them down. What strategies and other tools are most effective in helping you to stay on that straight and narrow path?
Let's say you're going after your goals and you don't see the results, right? So then anxiety comes in and fears come in. And so the fear of failure is a big one for a lot of people. Some people actually have fear of success because they don't not really feeling worthy or aren't able to get in that right mindset to be able to receive greatness or success or abundance or whatever it is that they want. So how do you overcome? So you have to kind of trust the process. You have to get a coach. You have to get a higher power involved. You have to get mentors. And so that's really where they help you develop that trust in yourself and your baby steps and your plan. So that's the next step. And after that comes ability to sustainably go after it, the energy. And that's the energy required to be able to go overcome your obstacles. You're going to run into obstacles no matter what.
Everybody's got obstacles, and actually, that's one of the next questions that I had written down to kind of talk to you about was obstacles, setbacks, temptations, things like that. What advice then do you have for people that that are dealing with these things and dealing with the struggles that they have to try to get over?
So the biggest thing is you have to believe that you can achieve your goals, right? That are attainable.
Belief in yourself.
Believe in yourself. And how you get that is often through reflection and or guidance from a mentor or a coach. So we're not trying to sell you a coaching thing, but everybody needs a mentor or a guidepost to guide them through a process. So overcoming obstacles requires action and the ability to receive positive outcomes out of those actions that reinforces. Once you get on a track, let's say you're going after a degree. The first step is to figure out what your degree should be in psychology or business. And you figure out you want to be a therapist. Then you go after the therapist. You learn what other therapists are doing. You do some research. You start to plan out your goals based on that. And then you talk to some therapist and you say, hey, do I really like what I want to do? Do these people showing me? You reinforce that. And then you start taking action items and you start applying for school for psychology and becoming a therapist. And then you may not get into Harvard. You may have to start out with a community college, which is totally fine because after a couple of years or a couple of semesters, you can go to a bigger school if you wanted to. And then you start taking that process in and you learn communication skills. There's the fifth step after you get the energy is around self-talk and also talking with other people. Self-talk is really important because you need to continue to reinforce to yourself that you have a goal and a purpose. Also, when you mentioned temptations are critical because oftentimes we do things that we don't want to do long term. That maybe, hey, they'd rather have a bag of chips and watch a football game rather than go outside for a walk or go to the gym for half an hour. So that overcoming that temptations only becomes clear when it is very clear that you want to be able to, if your goal is to be healthy and lose weight, and you're determined for that, you will find a time and the reason to go to the gym. But you'll be tempted if you are not clear and not committed. So as part of the goal setting is to commit yourself to a particular time. And then the temptations become a lot weaker once you're determined. That self-talk reinforces to yourself what it is that you want.
Are you a self-talker? When on my way to work, every time I work, I tell myself I'm going to have the best day that that I can possibly have. It's going to be a fantastic day. I'm going to make a lot of tips. I'm going to be pleasant. I'm going to, I'm going to be entertaining. I'm going to be doing the best job that I can. And I tell myself that every drive that I have to work. And the days that I don't are days that end up being train wrecks, end up being just a terrible day. So if I give myself that self-talk, for me, it works very well. Some people just don't do that. And it's something that I started doing many years ago when I used to be on the radio, telling myself that, you're going to be successful. You're going to ask good questions. You're going to be a great listener. You're going to, and those things seem to work very well for me and my mindset. But there's a lot of people that don't do that.
Yeah. And you can classify those statements or the self-talk as affirmations, right? That's a big word for that. And oftentimes people have done research on affirmations, and there's a book called The Silva Method. And there's a guy named Jose Silva, and he did a lot of research and became an expert in essentially manifesting. And he talked a lot about breathing exercises. He talked about getting centered. He talked about, similar to Joe Dispenza, but he was way ahead of his time. Here's a Hispanic Latin American guy in Texas. He came up with the Silva Method. And he talked about repeating a bunch of self-talk statements called affirmations. Now, affirmations are great when you're doing them before work because you're presenting yourself a positive outcome. There is this thing called the law of attraction in the universe. There's vibrations, and Einstein has mentioned it. We've talked about it a couple of times about energy. Likeness attracts likeness. So when you go after and you start thinking about, I'm going to have a great day, you focus your mind on having a great day. So you shifted your mindset towards that. So those positive affirmations really help. Your question to me a couple of minutes ago was really around, hey, are you a self-talker? I think we all are. We've got a voice inside our head all the time. Another great book that I've read, the tools that I've developed from, is this book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And in that book, the guy says there is a criticizer, the self-talker, and then there is a doer who's positively trying to get stuff done. If that's a great tennis match that you want to win, or if it's a great football game that Tom Brady's starting to win. So Tom Brady and Pete Carroll from the Seahawks, Tom Brady, obviously the greatest quarterback of all time, won 7 football championships in the NFL, Super Bowls. They both credit their success to this book called The Inner Game of Tennis. The Inner Game of Tennis has been pivotal in my life to kind of manage that self-talk. It's really all about focusing on what you want and quieting the criticizer. And so these affirmations in your head really make a big difference. So like I said, Joe Dispenza talks about it in The Brain Chemicals Released. What research has also shown is that once you are in, like I said, the beta waves are the rational brain functions. Then there's the alpha waves, which your brain is calm and more receptive. Theta waves, your brain is really connected to your subconscious area, to consciousness as a whole. Once you start doing these affirmations in your calm alpha and theta waves, they become a lot more impactful and get ingrained in your brain. And that's when things really start to shift. That's when you really start to shift your mindset.
I kind of want to turn it now to something that's a new pet project for you. You just started this new website called emindset.coach that deals with some of the stuff that we're talking about here and has like a way that we can kind of go on there and get coached right through the website.
As part of this evolution of Fall, Rise, Give, the vision was always have the ability to help people have the ability to give people specific tools. We started that with the podcast and talking about it. And we're talking about structured ways and how we're doing that in a systematic and a science-based way or expert-based way based on different books and different philosophies. That particular program is really set to help people in two ways. One is there is an AI-based coaching app that you can chat with and learn about the growth mindset, which is a mindset shifting protocol or process based on Stanford research. And then there is live coaching. You get on a Zoom call a few times a week, and we actually guide you through a guided meditation on shifting your brain waves from beta into alpha. And then we talk about specific topics for the day. We may have a topic for Monday called grounding. We may have a topic on Sunday at the end of the week on abundance and gratefulness. So we have these calls that we're working on with our members, if you want to call them that, with our users of our application, and actually guide them through a live, and then there's a question and answer session at the end of it. So that's kind of what we're planning on doing. That's what we've kicked off in the last week or so. And we've got a number of people already signed up for this. And so we want to promote that program to be able to tangibly help people in very specific ways to shift their mindset.
So can coaching help anybody?
It's interesting. We talked about the attitude adjustment program briefly today. We're not focused on it, but attitude adjustment as a whole. I think most people, I would say 90% of the people, can be helped because it really requires them to get grounded. And once you can get grounded, then you're receptive to figuring out what you want. Now, it can help anybody and everybody, like I said, 90% of the people, but you have to have sustainable progress, sustainable practices. It comes down to, as the attitude adjustment program is called, one day at a time, but it's almost every day. As I mentioned before, I meditate 2 to 3 times a day, focusing on exactly what I want to be able to accomplish for that day, for the next year, for the next 5 years, for the next month, all of those things. I've written my goals down. I rewrite my goals every month. I take action steps towards exactly what I want to accomplish. So we help people do these same kind of things. And yes, it can help majority of the people that we talk to.
It's funny because, you'd mentioned Tom Brady's name a little bit ago. And I know for a fact that every NFL team has a quarterback coach. And, you look at somebody at the top of their game, like when Tom Brady retired and Aaron Rodgers with, the Jets and Jordan Love. And, you look at all these coaches or all these quarterbacks, they all have coaches, even though they're at the top of their game, so there's help out there for even the best of the best.
I totally agree. And I can flip that towards a CEO that I know that I spent 3 hours with. I worked with the CEO of Microsoft 25 years ago. He was an advisor to my startup. And I know for a fact that he's the current CEO worth almost $1 billion, I think. Satya Nadella, he had a coach provided and funded by Microsoft. And that coach was really powerful. He's got a multi-million-dollar home in Seattle. And this guy coached him on how to be better. Satya had some rough patches in his career, and he felt like he failed a few times. But he kept on asking, what can I do better? What can I do better? He had the growth mindset. So this coach actually helped him become the CEO that he is today. And this coach was at a very high level. He was a general manager of growth and development at Microsoft. Obviously, a CEO is going to require a different level of set of skills that I am, or we as a bunch of coaches are going to provide. Our set of coaches are going to provide a set of skills for almost everybody, but the sweet spot's going to be right in that middle tier. We're not going to work with CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies because they have different set of problems. But for an average person in a middle career job who's a director or lower, or a person struggling to figure out just after college what they want to do, that range for us is the mainstream. But there are specialized coaches for business, for health and medicine doctors, for sports, as obviously every sports team, even the greatest players like Tom Brady, have a coach. Russell Wilson went on his own, the great quarterback for the Seahawks, and got himself a mental coach. So he got a coach specifically for his mental stuff. So there is a set of expertise that's required to achieve greatness and or to achieve your goals. Everybody needs a coach, a teacher, a manager should be playing that role in their life.
Want more information? emindset.coach is where you can find out more information about the stuff we've been talking about today. Have anything to wrap it up there, Kumar?
You can literally achieve what you conceive in your mind. Now, there are some limitations to it, but by and large, most things that people want to achieve, a great health, a great career, a great relationship, you can achieve these things, but you've got to go through a protocol or a process. You may be going through a random one, but there is a process that you're following. The more structured that process becomes, the more you'll get in line with what you want in a faster approach or a systematic approach to really not guarantees you success, but gets you closer to it so that you can really overcome your obstacles, your struggles. And then ultimately, when you start giving back, that's when you get closer to your purpose. When you start to give back your set of skills to other people, set of skills and traits and the gifts that you've developed, when you start giving those to other people, either for money or not, that's when you become really successful. So that's what I want to leave with. You can literally achieve what you can conceive in your mind.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit our website at www.fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.